Greetings everyone, I'm Bubble, and today we're going to be talking about the War of the Spark, the new set coming out at the end of April, or at least pre-releasing at the end of April. I'm totally going to, by the way, very, very hyped up for it. In fact, I want to discuss my current kind of first impressions of the cards we've seen so far. I'm not going to go in-depth and give a rating to each single card right now. I'll do that further on when we have basically all the cards revealed, because then I like to go either by color or maybe just all the Planeswalkers in one block. I'll figure some way to do it. But right now, I want to figure out how, some of the themes they're going for. They're bringing back some mechanics. They have a new one. They have a lot of different, not necessarily mechanics, but different styles and such that they're putting into the set. So I just want to get everyone up to speed on this and share my thoughts about how it's going so far. So without further ado, we're going to address the new mechanic, which is, if this button works, hey, it does, look at that, Amass. So, let's first talk about it, let's just say what it does, and then I'll give my opinion. Sounds fair? Cool. Alright. So, in this case, I'm just showing a card as well that just has purely that mechanic on it. Doesn't mean it's the best card for the thing at all, it just happens to be that one. Here's an example, run with it. What Amass does is it'll have a mass and then a number, we'll just say X. Put X +1/+1 counters on an army you control. If you don't control one, first you spawn a 0/0 black zombie army token. And then you put the counters on it. In this case, for Relentless Advance, if you already had an army out there, it will get the 3 +1/+1 counters. If you didn't, you'd make a 3/3. You make a 0/0 with 3 +1/+1s, which is kind of relevant with the next mechanic we're going to be talking about. Alright, so pretty simple. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Afterlife, and Afterlife didn't really do so well. It was kind of hyped up a little bit, especially in the limited sense, but it kind of ended up falling flat, which wasn't bad. I mean, it's kind of not great to have an overpowered mechanic on a few other cards. The only real Afterlife card that saw constructed play was Tithe Taker, and to a lesser extent, Seraph of the Scales. And they weren't really run mainly for the Afterlife either. But anywho, Amass I really don't feel is amazing, especially because we have so much single target removal out there, and Cast Down. There's going to be, probably Bedevil's going to come out quite a bit, because of all the Planeswalkers running around now. Pardon me, by the way. Let's see what this Cast Down. There's plenty of board wipes. Kaya's Wrath is huge. Vraskic's Contempt can also handle that. Hell, Kaya herself can actually just use her minus ability and get rid of the biggest army you control because it's a token, and it's going to disappear. Which is kind of interesting. Maybe she is the true OP Planeswalker. But, so you can tell now that I don't really like this from a gameplay point of view. From a flavor point of view, I also don't like it. Because you're supposed to be amassing Bolas's army of Eternals from Amonkhet, the kind of mummified, remains and zombies and stuff, and they're going to come by to Ravnica, and here's little foot soldiers that are going to just overwhelm you with a single token, who doesn't even have trample. I would get it if you made multiple tokens. I would get it if you made multiple tokens with +1/+1 counters on them. Although that would be probably a little overpowered considering the next mechanic we're going to mention. But if you just made a bunch of 1/1s and you just kind of kept stacking them, amass 3, put 3 1/1s out there. I could see it. Sure, it gets destroyed by Chain Whirler, which is already pretty prevalent, but I mean, what else are you going to do? Maybe just tone it back and make a 2/2 instead. I just hate the idea of having an army of zombies become one thing that can be wiped out just like that. Sure, maybe it makes sense for zombies, but they're Eternals. They're supposed to be eternal. There's even a card further down that references that they're eternal. No. Okay. So yeah, not a huge fan of the Amass mechanic. What's the next one we're talking about here? Proliferate. Okay, this is one that came out back when we were on, what, Phyrexia? Well, Phyrexia and Mirrodin, it was Mirrodin Besieged and all that kind of thing, they were fighting, and now they made new Phyrexia. Although there is rumor that the Mirrodins will rise again. So, Proliferate, let's just read the text on here and see if it makes any sense. Choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each other counter, then give each another counter of each type already there. Of each kind already there. See, I can kind of not really say it very well because it also doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you just say it like that. It's yeah, I get it. No, I don't. So, what it does is when you proliferate, and there can be multiple triggers for proliferating, but when you activate this keyword, then you choose any number of permanents and or players. You can choose players because sometimes back when players had infect counters, you can proliferate the infect counters under play. If players have other ways of getting counters, then you can do it that way too. Or other counters that could be applied. But for the most part, it's going to be permanents now. at least in Standard. So you pick any number of permanents out there, you know, the Planeswalkers, the creatures, yours, your opponents, whatever. And then you have to give on another counter of one that's already there. So in the case of the armies with the amass thing, you can proliferate the +1/+1 counters. So it just gets another +1/+1. Okay, cool. At the same time, though, you can also proliferate loyalty counters on your Planeswalkers. In fact, I got some Planeswalkers right here just to show you. So we have here lovely Miss, hopefully it's not too glary. Yeah, it is a little glary. Let's take her out of the sleeve. Lovely Miss Liliana. And thing, you can tell now that my video is flipped over, but whatever. Liliana, you can see 4 loyalty right there. Yes. So you can proliferate the loyalty counters, effectively getting more health and being closer to hitting your ultimate, although she doesn't really have an ultimate, so maybe not the best example. But yeah, that's something. Imagine setting off to Faerie a couple turns early and just getting his emblem. Or any number of the Planeswalkers that are coming out, because suddenly we have 36 new Planeswalkers. Not all of them have huge ultimates, but proliferate just gets you one step closer to whatever you want and keeps them alive for a little bit longer. Other things you can proliferate, notably, are maybe the counters, I think it's the quest counters that you get to put on the treasure map, or whatever counters they are, whatever they're called. You can do that so you can flip it faster. Something else you can do is, what is it? You can, let's see, Planeswalker Sagas. Yes. Say you just play the Eldest Reborn. And say you have a whole bunch of mana. You play the Eldest Reborn, okay, your opponent sacks something, maybe they don't, and you want them to discard right away, cool, proliferate. Second Saga counter. As soon as you start your next turn, then, you can put it into play. Or you can even just go through all 3 points of the saga immediately. That sounds pretty good in certain circumstances. I can see that being utilized differently. So that's something else to be very aware of. There's probably some other things that I'm just not thinking of right now, where you get counters on it and then it goes off at some point. But that's what proliferate does. It is a very strong mechanic. It is not to be underestimated. And just keep an eye on this thing, because if the Planeswalkers get out of control, proliferate is definitely going to be the main culprit, I'd say. Alright, now talking about Planeswalkers, what do we have here? Do we have anything else? Oh, we have Planeswalkers. They have their own little thing going on. In particular, I'm going to show you Bolas here, the guy kind of hanging out in the background. Just chilling, you know, not really up to anything at all. You'll notice at the very top of his line, there's something that's above the +1 ability, above any of the loyalty abilities. This is a static ability. Every Planeswalker that is being released in the War of the Spark will have a static, just kind of aura ability. In this case, Nicole Bolas, Dragon God, has all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. So that's his passive thing. There are other passives. One of them gives you hexproof. There's another one that gives all your creatures vigilance, and, you know, other sort of things like that. We're going to go through a few of the Planeswalkers that I think are pretty noteworthy. Of course, there's plenty more. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all of them, and I'm not going to rate them in particular, but I figured this is a good one to kind of kick things off. So yeah, that's kind of crazy. It's worth noting here that he actually gets stronger, I suppose, in a mirror match, because he copies your opponent's Planeswalkers as well. So if they're playing Super Friends and you're playing Super Friends, you get Super Friends. Although I imagine if I could talk, that'd be fantastic. No, I was going to say, if I imagine that, you know, they're also going to play this card, because it just gets everything. So yeah, there's that. I would imagine it'd be pretty strong. I would imagine a lot. Imagine all the people playing some Planeswalker that has a +2 ability. So then you get to tick up Bolas faster and eventually get the win the game thing just going down. There's a whole lot that we can do with this guy that I'm not even going to get into because my brain isn't ready for it yet. But I just wanted to make sure that, yes, you're aware that Planeswalkers now have static abilities. And that is very relevant because, as I am not prepared, I'm going to take out this other card. Does this look familiar to anybody, particularly backwards? Yes, that is the Immortal Sun. It shuts down things that are blurry. No, it shuts down Planeswalker loyalty abilities. So I guess this is kind of their way of balancing it, so making sure the Immortal Sun doesn't just get super overpowered and is like an instant include, because they'll still have their static abilities to go off of. So that's pretty nice right there. Alright, now going forward with other things that have more abilities. Gideon, he's got a pretty damn long, actually, static ability, and sword, and maybe something else. And let's see. It's hard to read. This is the image that we have, unfortunately. But, just to clarify it, as long as it's your turn, Gideon is a 4/4 human soldier creature with indestructible. That is still a Planeswalker. So on your turn, you have an indestructible Planeswalker just on his own. No other help at all. There are auras that can be attached to Planeswalkers, but he's kind of good. As long as you got your turn going, you're good to go. So I guess literally if you put him into something with like Nexus of Fate and you make it your turn forever, he can never die. That's a thought that just came into my head. But that's just interesting there, seeing that, you know, he can do that sort of thing. I think he's pretty cool. There were a lot of talk about him and the Black Blade. Maybe that's going to be the thing that does the killing blow to Bolas. So this was almost like a mandatory print. And at 3 mana, that's pretty good, I'd say. I think he's a pretty strong thing. This is the first time we've seen a Planeswalker that just is indestructible on his own. Previously, you would have to actually, you know, at least activate an ability. So now he's already going to be strong, and you can just keep plussing him and do whatever you want to there. Pretty nice. I like him. What's another one that's got a lot of hype about it? A little easier to read now. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. It kind of went away from the guild pack thing, and now he's just a mysterious person who just keeps coming and going. Ravnica is like, please, we need you. You are our guild pact. We need you to, you know, protect Ravnica and keep the city from falling into chaos. Yeah, I'll be right back. Yeah, hold on. I just gotta take care of this other thing. So we're not really sure what Jace has been doing. But he has become something of a maniac, as you'll see. His passive ability is if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game. Normally you would lose the game on the spot because that's a state-based action. That's just a rule of the game. But now I call him a maniac because there was a card previously called Laboratory Maniac, which had the same effect on it. Although that was a creature, this is a Planeswalker. His plus is actually just Thought Scour, which is already run in some... I mean, I've seen people run that in friggin'... Was it Vintage? Or is it Legacy? I don't know. Whichever one people play is both. But it's a very, very strong card. And he has it on a +1. Pretty strong. And then his minus is just draw 7 cards, then if your library has no cards in it, win the game. The reason for the redundancy, which I just learned previous to having this video, previous to coming up with this video, is that if you decide to minus Jace on 8 loyalty, he will die, and then he will no longer have the aura where you don't lose the game, so you would actually kill yourself if it didn't have that redundant, semi-redundant, you know, win the game clause at the end. Also, if you minus Jace and then your opponent removes Jace in response to that, and you know it stops them from being able to kind of sneak a win in there because you think you're going to win, suddenly removal, and now you deck yourself and then you lose. So people are saying this card's going to be kind of crazy. I will see how I think about it later on. I don't think it's going to be super amazing. People are mainly considering it as an alternate win condition for Nexus decks that go infinite. Pretty much infinite, because previously they had to at least have like 1 or 2 creatures, maybe usually a Krasis, to attack in the air just to get those attacks in and to have a win condition. Now they're saying, well, you don't even need to have creatures, you can just have Jace and you can just deck yourself to win. True. We'll see how that goes though. What's another one we're looking at here? It's a Faerie, talking about control and such. There's another Teferi on board, and he is cheaper, just 3 mana. Let's see, his passive is each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. Which doesn't just mean your opponent can't cast instants. It means they can't cast... well, it doesn't only mean they can't cast cards during your turn. It means they can't cast instants in response to anything. Which is kind of crazy. Or even, you know, obviously creatures with flash. Or anything with flash for that matter. We'll get to that in a second. But he basically, as long as you resolve Teferi, your opponent can't counter anything anymore. That's it. That's it. They're out of counters. They have to kill this guy, and if you counter them once, if you just play negate on top of that, they can't respond to your negate. It's done. It's final. There's something else that's going to be pretty final as well. We'll get to that in a moment as well. As well. You know, just got to get all those out there in case I missed one. His plus ability is very, very nice. Until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. Wow, and you just keep doing that basically, so you can cast spells whenever you want to, whatever spells you want to. Well, sorceries in particular, but how many creatures are going to run in a Teferi deck, let's be honest. And your opponent can't really do much about it. Sounds fair. I think he's great. There's again been talk, pardon me, about this card seeing some play in other formats like Modern, and forgive me, I'm not really sure about the distinction between Vintage and Legacy. I think Vintage is... I think the Legacy might not even exist anymore. I don't know. 3 Legacy players cry at me like, no, he doesn't acknowledge our existence. But but yeah, there's been talk about that being so great in older formats just because it shuts your opponent down. And then the minus is also pretty good. Get something back to your hand from your so your turn to your hand, draw a card. Nice, a little protection there. So he is pretty darn good. And let's see, well, talking about counters and things though, because your opponent can counter things, he's like amazing to put. I'm probably going to put him in my Esper control deck, or if it might just be Azorius control, because would you look at this card? You thought the Faerie was good. Dovan actually has the final say. For 1 white and 1 blue, you can play Dovan's Veto. It's an instant. This spell can't be countered, and you counter target non-creature spell. Wow. That is insane. I was actually streaming a little while ago, and I was looking through the cards that can't be countered. I was like, really? There's no counter that can't be countered? Huh. Interesting. And then they have this. And I was like, well, I kind of sort of had it in my head, but I never had in my head that it would only cost 2 mana. Sure, it's a specific 2 mana, and it's not, you know, and it's not mixed mana. It's not just double blue, which would be even worse. Jesus Christ. But you can basically just have whatever Teferi you want to, have whatever spell, float 2 mana, and as long as your opponent doesn't have Dovan's Veto, then you can make sure it resolves. End of story. As long as it's not being hit with a freaking Frilled Mystic, because yes, that is a creature counter. I know, right? Weird, but that doesn't really see play anymore. Maybe it will now because of this card in particular. I think this card is insane. I don't really know if that's what we needed, but that's what they gave us. I think it could very easily have cost 3 mana, because 3 mana is the standard for a counter in Cancel. They're trying to give it a drawback by making it only non-creatures, but with so much creature removal, I don't think it's really that relevant. The only way I could see them potentially balancing this with more cards being revealed or in the future is having more cards that can't be countered. But beyond that, this card is very, very powerful, and I think unless they have some crazy good thing going on with aggro, this might just put control kind of over the top. This is absolutely control versus control. This card is the win card. And control versus aggro, you could still probably get something out of this. Alright, next up now. Yes, Liliana's Triumph. So, they're saying this is like an edict effect. I'm not completely sure what the edicts are, but I believe you. This is instant speed, sack, and discard. Each opponent, by the way, love the artwork here. This is the full art and everything. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. And then if you control a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. So they have usually shied away from instant speed discard because it removes a lot of interaction. Since you could just do it during your opponent's, like, as soon as they draw the card, you can do it. Unless they can play it right away, meaning it's an instant or it has flash, then they don't even have a chance to play it. They lose priority whenever, or maybe they would have priority in that case. I suppose they would, because they maintain priority until they, you know, played like a land first. Like, oh, discard the other thing, whatever. If it was during your opponent's upkeep, you could actually do this if they have 1 card in hand. But that would be before they draw stuff. But yes, instant speed discard and a sacrifice as well. That is a very, very strong effect. And for 2 mana, that is a very, very strong effect. So to have that, I mean, the instant speed, the 2 mana, I'm repeating myself, but this is very... kind of insane. I didn't think that it was reprinted at all. And yeah, have I mentioned Esper Control? Look at that. We'll see what comes out of this, though. There's going to be definitely a new variant of Control. At least I hope so. I really don't want to keep playing the same deck plus like 2 or 3 new cards and still have the same exact win condition. I want to have some new things thrown in there. I want to have a whole new toolbox to play with. Well, yes, so the main reason why I'm showing this card, aside from it being extremely, extremely good, is that it's an instant speed thing. So how do we combat instants? With more instant speed things. Emergence Zone. The artwork for the set, by the way, is just amazing. I love it. I mean, the artwork is great for like pretty much every set, but like props to the artists who worked on this one because this is just breathtaking, stunning, really. So here's a land, and it's an uncommon land at that. What was Liliana's thing? Uncommon? Cool. Alright, getting 4 of those. But you can pay 1 and tap it, sacrifice it. You may cast spells this turn, as though they had flash. So that is obviously you know, non-creature spells and creatures. I mean, it kind of encompasses literally everything. But yeah, you can just do that, and then during your opponent's turn, oh, I'm gonna, you know, play Liliana's Triumph. Okay, well, I'm gonna sack this, and then in response to that, I'm going to play Faerie or something. I'm going to play Bolas, the Dragon God. I'm going to drop my Planeswalker during your turn because I can. Strictly because I can. And that is kind of, sort of, I don't know. I can't really, again, wrap my hand around that so well. There have been cards in the past that gave other cards, or card types, I suppose, flash. But just having everything have flash, you have to lose 1 mana for it, and you actually have to pay 1 and lose the land, but this is something to watch out for. I know in the past a lot of people were concerned about Wilderness Reclamation, and it turned out to be a very strong card, admittedly, although not played at the very highest tier of Standard, I'm saying. But this is another thing to look for, to keep an eye out for, because it's still up there. Wilderness decks are like tier 1.5, tier 2. This could just be amazing. And this plus Reclamation is also really good. You untap all your stuff, you sack things, you get to play everything you want during your opponent's turn. It's something to watch. Oh, let's see, what do we have here? Just to round out the set, talking about a few more things we have. Let's see here. Totally Lost. We already had this, a reprint. Let's see, put target. Oh, look, that's that. Oh, it's the little Fibblethip dude. Hey, little Fibblethip, how are you doing? Let's see, you look like you're on top of, what the heck is that? Is that a statue, or is that actually Bolas, or is it Ugin, his long-lost brother? See, it shows you how much I know. I'm assuming it's just a statue. Otherwise, Fibblethip, I'm very terrified for your existence. Speaking of existence, hey, we have Fibblethip, look at that. Oh my goodness, they actually, the fans loved him, now we love him, and now he's a card we can actually hold in our hands. We can have our very own Fibblethip. And yes, that's how you pronounce it, at least that's how I hope you pronounce it, because Mark Rosewater mentioned him in a talk a while ago, and so that's what I'm going for. So, what do we have here? Well, he is a 2 mana, 1 whatever, and 1 blue. Legendary Homunculus, of course. He is always lost. It is eternally lost for this guy. I love that. And when he enters the battlefield, draw a card. Cool. Really quick, nice little cycle there. If he entered the battlefield from your library, or was cast from your library, draw 2 cards instead. That's pretty nice. I'm not sure exactly what cards in standard, I didn't really look into it, what cards in standard, I know, right, high production value, would be able to pull him from your library and just put him onto the board to get that extra card draw. Although I suppose since you're using another effect to do that, then it replaces that effect as well as his own appearing there. So really solid, like, efficient thing. And when he becomes the target of a spell, he goes back to the library. He is lost, and he is terrified, and he is afraid. But he will survive. So yeah, he's just a great little guy. I can actually see him seeing play just because, hey, a cycle is pretty good, and you could potentially even plus with him, get some card advantage with him. That's pretty nice as well. And he evades some removal, although I don't know how much you would really want to top deck a Fibblethip. Well, he cycles, I mean, he's kind of slow cycle, but I think he's kind of cool. I just love that he put him in here, and he's amidst all the Eternals and Planeswalker and everything fighting out. He's just like, guys, I think I made a wrong turn. Geez, I know I made a left at the sewer, and then I was at some sort of Rakdos thing, and oh boy, I don't know. Oh, I love it. So those are my thoughts about how things are going so far. I am super, oh my god, very, very hyped for the set. I'm going to go to the pre-release and person, you know, not just the online thing, but I'm going to totally be doing reviews further down. I have already stated that whatever Planeswalker, foil Planeswalker I get from the pre-release exclusive, I'm going to do my best, my absolute best, to make a solid deck out of it. If it's really good, I'll actually make it on paper as well. If it's just kind of like a meme deck because I didn't get a great one, then you'll see it on my MTG Arena. So stay tuned for more. I will put more reviews up as more cards, well, when most of the cards are revealed, because I don't want to have like reviews every few seconds and be like, hey, look at this. This is cool, this is cool, this is cool. Now let's revisit everything. So, without further ado, this video is getting to be a little bit long for something that's just me talking about things. This is some of the things you have to look forward to, and I, once again, am hyped. So please stay tuned for more. I'm also going to be trying to put out some gameplay videos, so we'll see how that goes. I stream every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning Eastern Time from 6 a.m. onward, so feel free to tune into that. I'll have a link down in the description below. And without further ado, good night, or good morning, depending on what time it is for you. But as always, good luck.